Lois McMaster Bujold is an American speculative fiction writer. She is one of the most acclaimed writers in her field, having won the Hugo Award for Best Novel 4 times, matching Robert A. Heinlein's record, not counting his Retro Hugo. Her novella The Mountains of Mourning won both the Hugo Award and Nebula Award. In the fantasy genre, The Curse of Chalion won the Mythopoeic Award for Adult Literature and was nominated for the 2002 World Fantasy Award for Best Novel, and both her 4th Hugo Award and 2nd Nebula Award were for Paladin of Souls. In 2011 she was awarded the Skylark Award. In 2013 she was awarded the Forry Award. The bulk of Bujold's works comprise 3 separate book series, the Vorkosigan Saga, the Chalion Series, and the Sharing Knife Series. Biography. Bujold is the daughter of Robert Charles McMaster and attributes her early interest in science fiction, as well as certain aspects of the Vorkosigan Saga, to his influence. He was editor of the monumental non-destructive testing handbook generally referred to as McMaster on Materials. Bujold writes that her experience growing up with a world-famous father is reflected in the same experience that her characters have of growing up in the shadow of a great man. Having observed this tendency in both genders, she wonders why it is always called great man's son syndrome, and never great man's daughter's syndrome. Her brother, an engineer like their father, helped provide technical details to support her writing of Falling Free. She became a member of science fiction fandom, joined the Central Ohio Science Fiction Society, and co-published Stardate, a science fiction fanzine in which a story of hers appeared under the byline Lois McMaster. Bujold currently lives in Minnesota. She is divorced and has 2 children. Science fiction. Lois Bujold wrote 3 books before The Warrior's Apprentice was accepted after 4 rejections. The Warrior's Apprentice was the first book purchased, though not the first Vorkosigan book written, nor would it be the first one to be published. On the strength of The Warrior's Apprentice, Baen Books agreed to a 3-book deal to include the 2 bracketing novels. Thusly began her career in writing in science fiction. By 2010, Baen Books claimed to have sold 2 million copies of Bujold's books. Bujold is best known for her Vorkosigan Saga, a series of novels featuring Miles Vorkosigan, a physically impaired interstellar spy and mercenary admiral from the planet Barrea, set approximately 1,000 years in the future. Earlier titles are generally firmly in the space opera tradition with no shortage of battles, conspiracies, and wild twists, while in more recent volumes, Miles becomes more of a detective. In A Civil Campaign, Bujold explores yet another genre, a high society romance with a plot that pays tribute to Regency romance novelist Georgette Heyer. It centers on a catastrophic dinner party, with misunderstandings and dialogue justifying the subtitle A Comedy of Biology and Manners. The author has stated that the series' structure is modeled after the Horatio Hornblower books, documenting the life of a single person. In themes and echoes, they also reflect Dorothy L. Sayers' mystery character Lord Peter Wimsey. Bujold has also said that part of the challenge of writing a series is that many readers will encounter the stories in utterly random order, so she must provide sufficient background in each of them without being excessively repetitious. Most recent printings of her Vorkosigan tales do include an appendix at the end of each book, summarizing the internal chronology of the series. Bujold has discussed her own views on the optimum reading order for the Vorkosigan series in her blog. Fantasy. Bujold also wanted to break into the fantasy genre, but met with early setbacks. Her first foray into fantasy was The Spirit Ring. She wrote the book on spec, shopped it around, and found low offers, sending her back to Baen Books, where Jim Baen bought it for a fair price in exchange for the promise of more Vorkosigan books. Bujold called this experience, combined with the mediocre sales and lack of critical acclaim of that book, very educational. She would not attempt to break into the fantasy market again for almost another decade, with The Curse of Chalion. This book was also written on spec and offered up to a book auction. This time, she met with considerable critical and commercial success by tapping into a crossover market of fantasy and romance genre fans. The fantasy world of Chalion was first conceived as a result of a University of Minnesota course she was taking about medieval Spain in her spare time. The next fantasy world she created was the tetralogy set in the universe of the Sharing Knife, borrowing inspiration for its landscapes and for the dialect of the farmers from ones she grew up with in central Ohio. She writes that her first readers who helped proofread it said she got it exactly right and they could recognize Ohio features in the descriptions and dialects. Selected works Vorkosigan Saga Cordelia Naismith, Shards of Honor, Retro Hugo Award winner, Locus Award winner, 1992, Nebula Award nominee, 1991, Cordelia's Honor Euro combined edition of Shards of Honor and Barrel with an afterword by the author. Gentleman Joling the Red Queen. Miles Vorkosigan, The Warrior's Apprentice, Borders of Infinity, Brothers in Arms, The War Game, Barrel, Vorkosigan's Game, Mirror Dance, Setaganda, Memory, Young Miles, A Civil Campaign, Miles, Mystery and Mayhem, Diplomatic Immunity, Miles Errant, Miles, Mutants and Microbes, Miles in Love, Winterfare Gifts, Cryoburn. Other, Ethan of Athos, Falling Free, 2014 Prometheus Classic Fiction Award, Dreamweaver's Dilemma, Captain Vor Patrol's Alliance. Internal chronology, Dreamweaver's Dilemma Euro set in the Vorkosigan universe long before the rest of the series NESFA Press, Falling Free Euro set approximately 200 years before the birth of Miles Vorkosigan Euro Nebula Award winner, 1988, Hugo Award nominee, 1989, Shards of Honor Euro set approximately 1 year before the birth of Miles Vorkosigan, Euro Hugo Award winner, Locus Award winner, 1992, Nebula Award nominee, 1991, The Warrior's Apprentice. Available online from the Bayonne Free Library. The Mountains of Mourning Euro Hugo Award winner, Nebula Award winner. First published in Analog magazine. Included in Borders of Infinity. Available online from the Bayonne Free Library. The Vorkosigan Euro Hugo Award winner, Locus Award nominee, 1991, Setaganda Locus Award nominee, 1997, Ethan of Athos Euro Miles Vorkosigan is referred to, but does not actually appear, in this novel. Labyrinth Euro first published in Analog magazine. Included in Borders of Infinity. The Borders of Infinity Euro first published in Freelancers. Included in Borders of Infinity. Available online via Bayonne's Webscriptions. Brothers in Arms, Borders of Infinity Euro collection of the Mountains of Mourning, Labyrinth and the Borders of Infinity, tied together with an original frame story interspliced between them, which is set shortly after Brothers in Arms. Mirror Dance Euro Hugo Award winner, Locus Award winner, 1995, Memoria Euro Hugo Award nominee, Nebula Award nominee, Locus Award nominee, 1997, A Civil Campaign Euro Hugo Award nominee, Nebula Award nominee, Locus Award nominee, 2000, Winterfare Gifts Euro first published in English in Irresistible Forces, a science fiction romance genre crossover anthology edited by Catherine Acero. Also in the omnibus Miles in Love. The Winterfare Gifts novella is also available as a stand-alone book from FictionWise. Diplomatic Immunity Euro Nebula Award nominee, 2003, Captain Vor Patrol's Alliance Euro Hugo Award nominee, 2013, Cryoburn Euro Hugo Award nominee, 2011, Gentleman Joling the Red Queen, Omnibus Volumes, Cordelia's Honor Euro contains Shards of Honor and Barrel, Young Miles Euro contains The Warrior's Apprentice, The Mountains of Mourning, and The War Game, Miles, Mystery, and Mayhem Euro Setaganda, Ethan of Athos, and Labyrinth, Miles Errant Euro The Borders of Infinity, Brothers in Arms, and Mirror Dance, Miles in Love Euro A Civil Campaign, and Winterfare Gifts, Miles, Mutants and Microbes Euro Falling Free, Diplomatic Immunity, and Labyrinth, Test of Honor Euro out of print. Contains Shards of Honor and The Warrior's Apprentice, Vorkosigan's Gamea Euro out of print. Contains The War Game, The Mountains of Mourning, Labyrinth, and The Borders of Infinity, with the framing story for the collection Borders of Infinity, audiobooks, cassette tape and CD versions of Falling Free, Shards of Honor, Barrel, The Warrior's Apprentice, The War Game, Setaganda, Ethan of Athos, Borders of Infinity, and Brothers in Arms were produced by the Reader's Chair. This company is no longer in business. Currently, unabridged audio CD editions are available via iPhone iPod Touch-ups using the Folium Enhanced Audio Player, MP3, Playaway and cassette versions through Blackstone Audio for Falling Free, Shards of Honor, Barrier, The Warrior's Apprentice, The War Game, Setaganda, Ethan of Athos, Brothers in Arms, Mirror Dance, Memory, Comar, A Civil Campaign, Winter Fair Gifts, Diplomatic Immunity, and Cryo Burn. Most titles produced by Blackstone Audio are also available for download on audible.com and from the websites of several public libraries via overdrive.com. The enhanced audio app versions are available via the Apple iTunes Store and can be previewed at the blackstoneaudioapps.com website. Comic books. The Vorkosigan Saga has also been made into a comic book in France. La Saga Vorkosigan Volume 1, L'Apprentissage du Guerrier, written by Dominique Leitel and Jose, copyright Maria Breuil. Chalion Series in the fantasy genre Chalion universe, the Curse of Chalion Hugo, Locus Fantasy, and World Fantasy Awards nominee, 2002, Paladin of Souls Hugo, Nebula and Locus Fantasy Awards winner, 2004, The Hallowed Hunt Locus Fantasy Award nominee, 2006, Penrick's Demon Bujold's longest novella. Sharing Knife Series The Sharing Knife is another fantasy genre series, Beguilement, Legacy, Passage, Horizon. Other titles The Spirit Ring Locus Fantasy Award nominee, 1993, Sidelines, Talks and Essays, Audiobooks, Blackstone Audio produces CD editions, MP3, Playaway, and cassette versions of The Curse of Chalion, Paladin of Souls, The Hallowed Hunt, The Sharing Knife Vol 1, Beguilement, The Sharing Knife Vol 2, Legacy, The Sharing Knife Vol 3, Passage and The Sharing Knife Vol 4, Horizon. All of these titles are also available from audible.com and amusic.com. Awards. Hugo Awards wins, The Mountains of Mourning, The War Game, Barrier, Mirror Dance, Paladin of Souls, nominations, Falling Free, Memory A Civil Campaign, The Curse of Chalion, Winter Fair Gifts, Cryo Burn, Captain Vor Patrol's Alliance. Nebula Awards wins, Falling Free, The Mountains of Mourning, Paladin of Souls, nominations, Weatherman, Barrier, Memory A Civil Campaign, Diplomatic Immunity. Locus Awards Best Science Fiction Novel, Barrier, Mirror Dance, Best Fantasy Novel, Paladin of Souls. John W. Campbell Award for Best New Writer nominated. References. Further reading. External links, official website, interview by Clarkesworld magazine, official forum at ECDOF, Lois McMaster Bujold at the Internet Speculative Fiction Database, Lois McMaster Bujold at Goodreads, Lois McMaster Bujold at the Internet Book List, Lillian Stewart Carl's webpage, where the Vorkosigan Companion is discussed, a reader's companion to A Civil Campaign compiled by members of the Bujold chatlist and freely available at the Bujold Nexus, Lois McMaster Bujold at Library of Congress Authorities, with 36 catalog records.